Yeah, welcome to the show, Capital Raiser Show. Now that we have you and we're excited about your event, I wanted to ask you a million questions. So I'm very fortunate and blessed to have you on. You're somebody that I admire highly with your track record, the way that you interact, and I find you to be a person that I want to model myself after, not only because you have a successful podcast that you've used to educate people, to add value to the general public and to the multifamily investors and capital raising space. But one thing that I'm really inspired by is that you're active in charities, that you're running an event. It's my understanding that you're donating all of the profits or proceeds from the Northstar Real Estate Conference to the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention and Junior Achievement, and I commend you for that. And I want to ask you about that. But why don't we start with a little bit of your background? Tell us how you became a multifamily syndicator and how you evolved into what you're currently doing.
Well, yeah. First of all, thanks for the introduction. Appreciate that. So I started in real estate back in 2008, which anybody now is like, whoa, duh, that was like a fantastic time. But at the time, it was the worst time in the world. Everybody's running the opposite way. So it's hard to think about it right now because you go, well, the prices were so great. But and this is the exact same thing will happen again when the next recession happens. Everybody's going to run the opposite way. And then they'll go, oh, geez, that was the best time to invest ever. Yeah. So anyways, I started in 2008. I used to be a high school industrial tech teacher prior to that. And got into mostly single families, some small duplexes, triplexes, stuff like that. Did a lot of fix and flips through the time. And always, you asked about raising money. Always raising money for my deals. That was a big part of my business, and growing my business was bringing in private capital from the beginning for my flips, for my rentals, all that kind of stuff. So it's always been part of my business, and I've just grown and evolved through that. And back in 2000, kind of 14, 15, somewhere around there, I really slowed down and took a look at my business and where it was at and where I wanted to go, and decided multifamily was the path for me. And I always wanted to do multifamily, large multifamily. I mean, right from the beginning, my goal was to get 1,000 units. And that was back in 2008. And I just wasn't getting there with the path that I was going down. So I transitioned in 2015, started buying some smaller multifamily, the 10 to 20 unit kind of range. And then jumped up from there fairly quickly into 100 plus unit buildings. And that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Wow. So walk us through, I'm guessing that the first few deals that you did, they were potentially joint venture type of capital raises or partnerships, whereas now you're doing more syndication type capital raises using regulations from the 506B and 506C. How did you transition? Am I correct about that? Were they originally more partnership type capital raises?
Yeah, I mean, it really depended on the deal. Some of them were equity position. We would do a split. Some of them were just a debt position where my investors would take a debt on the property, and we would pay them a 12%, 14% return on their money. So it really depended on kind of where I was at in the phase of the business, and it kind of evolved and changed and throughout that time.
And that transition, when you did your first capital raise, maybe you can walk us through for the audience members that aren't familiar with the regulations and what you have to do involving a lawyer that's writing a private placement memorandum and an operating memorandum.
Yep.
And the differences between the process of raising capital for a multifamily with partners or using an equity position or giving them a secured note with real estate to that. How do you make that jump from doing capital raises that way to actually doing a full-blown syndication type of fund with separate LLCs as partners and GP and limited partners?
Yeah, I mean, so the first The first method, I did it very elementary. It was very basic. We do it per deal, which I actually still do per deal, but I'd bring in one investor. They would give the money and we would give very simple return. So it's a pretty simple setup. Um, and those same investors, I would use over and over again. So they got to familiar with my performance, with who I am. And when I transitioned into multifamily, it was a pretty simple conversation of here's what I'm doing. Do you want to come with me? Yes or no? And all of them said, yeah, let's do it. The returns were quite frankly, pretty much identical. What I was paying in the flips. Now the flips, again, nothing's guaranteed, but the flips was more, this is what you're going to get with the multifamily. Obviously it's based on performance. But the setup is definitely a lot different because we're doing a syndication. So with the syndication, basically that's bringing a lot of people's money into one deal. So we're, like, as you said, we're doing the 506B type offerings. So what that is friends and family, acquaintances, they can invest in my deal. People that know me and have a pre-existing relationship with me, whether they're accredited or non-accredited. I can bring in a certain amount of non-accredited as long as they understand what they're doing. So they call them sophisticated. So they have to understand something about real estate and the risks that are involved and stuff like that. But doing the syndication model allowed me to bring in enough investors to be able to raise for the deal. So my very first deal was about $1 million raise, and I was able to bring in, I can't recall how many investors, but a dozen or so investors into that deal in order to close on it. And you kind of asked about the setup. I mean, it's obviously it's regulated, and quite frankly, same with the other setup. But it's regulated, so you need to make sure you have a well-versed securities attorney. So it's different than a real estate attorney. It's different than a law attorney. A securities attorney deals with securities. They know the ins and outs of the regulations and how to, navigate the water so you're going to stay out of trouble. They know what you can say and what you can't say, how you can advertise and how you can't advertise, and when you can and can't. And so they're really, really important and critical part of your success. Of course, it's going to cost you some money for it, because attorneys always do, but it's better to spend that money and to stay safe. Make sure you protect your money and your investors' money, of course, along the way. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, do you have any specific questions on the type of setup?
No, I guess just me personally, I try to ask questions for the audience. I've been told that the questions that I usually have, my personal questions, are ones that the audience are interested in. And for me personally, I was lucky enough to latch on with a group that's already done 15 multifamily syndications. But because they have a track record, I can lean on them. However, I personally don't have that track record. I'm just associated with the group that does. And I get to interview people about raising capital, because that's what I want to do for our group. I want to learn how to successfully raise capital. There's a lot of people in the industry that say, one of the best ways to add credibility and add value is to create like an authority platform, an interview-based authority platform. And I saw the podcast as an option to do that. I had successfully raised some capital on YouTube back during the crash for some small multifamily properties. And when I told the Bakerson Group about that, they said, you need to come on board with us because we want to grow and we want to get a social media presence. And we just were fortunate enough to need each other in that specific moment. So, but as I'm learning through the process of interviewing people and through going to symposium and events like the one that you have coming up, and through networking and talking to lawyers and whatnot, it's important for me to try and figure out what if I ever move on, or if I ever decide to run a syndication from scratch and maybe partner or co-GP with somebody else that has a track record, what I should expect. And in this case, what I want to know is, because I've raised capital as a joint venture partner. And when you're giving somebody 50% of the deal, maybe it's more of a mindset question. I feel that it would be much easier to sell that versus, hey, here's a 12 to 18% return, where you don't get that quite that same amount of equity or return on your investment. So is that more of a mindset question, or does it really matter? You just need to go out and raise the capital and ask people for the money.
Well, a couple things. First of all, I think it comes down to how well you can explain the setup, right? Because you and I could partner on a deal and we could split it 50-50, and that's great. Or you could invest in a larger deal, a syndication deal, where you only get, 5% or 3% or whatever it is. But at the end of the day, those returns may be very similar. Potentially even the syndication model is better returns. And so you have to really explain, okay, here's what the investment looks like, but here's your money. So I break it down based on, we give an example of if you invest $100,000 with us, here is how your money's coming back to you. And that way they can see their returns, and it makes sense to them. Because when you're going out and raising, $6.3 million and you're going to invest $100,000, it's hard for people to really go, okay, well, what am I getting? What's the return? But if you just got it there, boom, right there, and here's $100,000, you're getting, 8,256 the first year. We're expecting to get you. We're expecting to get you 9,324 the second year, and so on. And we can go, okay, here's the model. Here's where we're thinking we're going to be able to achieve. That's your return. People go, oh, wow, the light bulb turns on. It's really easy. So that's number one. Number two is you said something, and I think it's important to distinguish. You're not asking for money ever. I think that's really important. Don't ask for money as you're raising money. You're always providing an opportunity, right? And truly you are. If you believe in what you are presenting to them, you're offering an opportunity. And why not offer an opportunity that they otherwise couldn't get access to? So when I bring an opportunity to my family, to my friends, to those who know me, I feel like, look, I'm obligated to, because wouldn't you be upset if somebody that you knew had opportunities, had great opportunities, they could have told you about it, and you had money you would have loved to put towards it, but they sealed their lips? And you find out years and years later that they've made everybody around you thousands and hundreds of thousands and maybe millions of dollars, but you weren't included. You would say, well, geez, what's it? Why didn't you include me? So your job is to provide an opportunity. Now, if they don't want that opportunity, that's fine. It's not for everyone, but I think your mindset needs to go from I'm asking for money to I'm providing an opportunity for people to invest and to diversify their portfolio and to get in one of the best asset classes that is possible with very strong and attractive returns.
Well, yeah, that's a completely different way to look at it. I appreciate that. I guess I had heard from one of Grant Cardone's seminars, that you're not going to get anything if you don't ask for it. But yeah, cool. I have some questions about doing a podcast, because you're the first person that I've had that is a successful podcaster. When you're launching your podcast, when you're getting ready, and I approached it from the ready, fire, aim. I just wanted to get content out there and just go. But at the same time, I beat myself up because I'm not as prepared as some of the people that have a bigger budget and bigger track record and are more articulate and eloquent on live scenarios. But what is your advice for growing your podcast and for just being a very good podcaster in general? I noticed that a lot of the podcasters that I've scheduled, Bruce Willett from Bakerson on, they've always asked for a resume. They've always asked for a headshot. And I have not established that practice yet. You sent me yours. So I wanted to ask you specifically about that and how you use that resume to edify them or introduce people, and how you grow your podcast.
Yeah, I think it's really important to have something so where you can, give a nice, quick, short introduction. You did, I thought, an excellent introduction. And then the headshot's great because you can use that for social media purposes if you want to do that. I think a big thing with these podcasts are just putting it out on social media. Again, you're providing good value and content. If you feel like you're providing good value and content, you need to share it with people. Now, don't be obnoxious about it, but at the same time, share it with people and let everybody know what you're doing and the value that you add. And I think it's really important to give, good, concise keywords so people can understand what this episode's about. Give a nice short description of what it's about, why people should be excited to listen to it, and push it out. And then try to get your audience to help out. Anybody that's listening to this podcast, they're listening to it for a reason. They're getting value out of it. So these listeners, you want to continue to grow your podcast and affect more people. So it would be a blessing if your listeners would go onto iTunes and give you a rating and review, and if they would share this out on social media. So that would help as well. And then you've got people that you're interviewing, and those people are extremely important for your success. So after this is done and it gets ready to air and we air it, obviously you're going to provide me with links and opportunities to share it on my social media pages. You're going to provide opportunities for me to share it with my mailing list, and you're going to provide opportunity for me to rate and review your show as well and provide good positive feedback. So those are the things that are going to really help it grow. Really getting it out there and letting people know what you're doing and make sure everybody understands why this podcast is powerful, why it's going to affect people in a positive way. I think that's going to be extremely important. Then the last thing as a podcaster, if you want to gain success, you're going to have to get on other people's shows. And so the more shows you can get on, obviously the better. I'm on here for a couple of reasons. One is to provide value to your audience, but another is selfish reason is to provide value to me and continue to grow my audience as well. I would love your listeners to be my listeners as well.
Nice. Yeah, one of the things that I'm still learning to do is letting the audience know where they can even find the podcast. I don't think I've mentioned it once, but we're on Stitcher, we're on Spotify, and we're on Apple Podcasts. And of course, we have the YouTube channel at capitalraisershow.com. But just do a search for us, and I'm sure you can find us in any of those platforms. Where do you broadcast yours? Are you on SoundCloud and some other places?
We're on everything. Yeah, you can ask Alexa to play Pillars of Wealth Creation. Alexa will play Pillars of Wealth Creation. So we're on everywhere. We make sure everybody can find us. That's really important as well. And look, anybody who's listening to this and goes, maybe I should do a podcast because thought leadership, it is a great way to raise capital. It's not the only way, by the way. There's a lot of other things you need to do beyond just a podcast, but it's a great way. And anybody who's thinking about it and or just like, hey, maybe I just want to do a podcast about something completely different, sports or whatever it is. It's a long, slow road. You're not going to get 1,000 listeners in a day. It's just not going to happen. Now there's been podcasts out there for years now, close to 10 years, maybe even longer now. And so they've gained their audience and they've done it through a long, long road, and very few podcasts become popular within a year. Most of them take a lot longer.
How long have you done your podcast for?
I've been doing it for almost 2 years.
All right. Okay. So one of the things I heard you say is that there's a lot of things that you need to do besides a podcast for raising capital. So let's talk about the raising capital side. What do you do? Yep. What are your best practices? What is effective, and how do you find people to present an opportunity to?
Yeah. So a couple things. First of all, doing good business is going to be the most important part. Are you able to be ethical, honest, and do good business? Be conservative. Make sure how you're presenting your deals is professional. How you talk to people is professional. So that's extremely important. And then the next thing is get out there, network. Are you going to your local real estate meetups? Are you going to any opportunities that you're able to get in front of people that potentially would be benefiting from your investments. Like this weekend, I went to just an evening kind of black tie party. Well, there's a decent amount of potential capital at that party, and obviously it was a fun time as well, but it provides me an opportunity to get in front of the right people. I got invited to with a local bank. They've got a little party going on. Of course I'm going to be going to that. So make sure you take advantage of those types of opportunities. That's going to be that face-to-face is probably the best. Getting involved with charities, getting involved with, your local groups like Chamber of Commerce and, any groups like that, Lions clubs, whatever. Just getting involved in things are really important. And then beyond that, helping people out. I go on to Bigger Pockets all the time. I'm on there making comments. I'm on there helping people out. I try to be positive and I try to be helpful. I try to make comments that are very constructive and not the opposite. And same thing on Facebook even. I'm a part of a decent amount of Facebook groups. I try to make good comments on there, try to actually add value, try to ask relevant questions. Just continuing to be in front of people is going to be really important. I do some beyond my podcast. I do some blogging. I could probably pick that up quite a bit, but I do some blogging and, push the content out as much as I can.
Do you think you have to be a professional speaker in order to do a podcast?
No, I'm not a professional speaker.
I'm definitely not a professional speaker. I've gone through.
No, look, I mean, here's the thing: to do a podcast, and again, a podcast is not for everyone. I don't want to sit there and say a podcast is for you; it's for everyone, because it's not necessarily. I mean, you have to do things you're going to enjoy and you're going to actually get value out of, and you're going to be able to provide value. So if it's not a podcast, it's not a podcast. Maybe you're really good at blogging. Maybe you're good at videos. Maybe you don't like adding value like that at all. I don't think you have to have a social platform in order to raise capital. If you're really good at networking, if you really like to get out there, that is just fine. I've got a friend who doesn't do a lot of social media at all, and he can raise a ton of money because he's just really good at getting in front of people. He's really good at getting in contact with people and making them feel comfortable around him. That is a fantastic way. So you got to figure out what you need to do in order to raise the capital that you need to raise. For me, a podcast made sense. And again, you don't have to be an expert. I know people that are hosting podcasts that aren't experts, but they ask experts to be on their show and ask really good questions. And that's how you're going to provide the value to your audience. And that's how you're going to grow your podcast. And that's how you're going to grow your investor list.
That's really great advice. I want to go into the real estate conference. However, before we go that way, I know that you're a hunter and a skier. Where is it that you like to go riding? What are your favorite mountains? And then tell us about, I kind of want to lead you into it. You actually invested in and flipped a ski resort. Is that correct?
Yeah. So, favorite mountains, it's unfair because I haven't gone to many mountains. I wish I would. I didn't start skiing until I was probably like 18 or so. And I didn't really get into skiing until the last 5-6 years. So I've completely fallen in love with downhill skiing. And I love Big Sky, Montana. I mean,
that's actually my favorite. I love it.
It's an amazing mountain. And I shouldn't tell people because it's not very busy. So the more I tell people, the more they're going to want to go there. But
I think they have enough space. It's the largest resort in the country. It is enormous. I've been to most parts of it, at least on the main trails. But I love the mountain. I have a friend actually that has a bed and breakfast. Shout out to Morgan Linsenmeyer or Linsenmeyer Ayers. She runs a bed and breakfast just about 15 minutes away from that mountain. I've gone up and visited her. But
Yeah, it's
yeah,
a
that's
beautiful area. I love it. The mountains are, of course, amazing anywhere you go. But, so I bought a ski resort. It was actually a defunct ski resort in Minnesota, and purchased it. We are going to do a couple things with it, but ended up not really doing much with the property. Ended up selling it just a few years later and made a pretty good profit on it. So that was a fun little deal. Um, Thought about running like a snowboard ski school out of it. Thought about doing weddings and events. That the person that bought it is now doing weddings and events and have a lot of success doing it. So it just was going to take more time than I wanted to put into it. It would have been a definitely distraction. So it's
yeah.
always fun to say I used to own a ski resort.
I bet that's a nice icebreaker, I'm sure.
Yeah, yeah.
So I went on to LinkedIn and saw you talking about a real estate conference, and one of the things that really caught my attention was that you were giving all the proceeds away to charity. So I commented about it, and you specifically asked me to come. And when people ask me that, you feel very empowered to take action because I want to get to know people like yourself. So I went ahead and signed myself up and my wife, and we're going to be coming out here in a couple of weeks, maybe even less than that. Why don't you tell us about? I know you have a nice lineup of speakers, including Trevor McGregor, who I've spoke to on the phone as a potential person I might hire to coach. But tell us all about your event and how you chose the charity that you specifically want to donate all the proceeds to.
Yeah, so 2-day event. It is September 20th and 21st. Like you said, we've got a fantastic lineup of speakers. People can go to our website, nreconference.com. It's Northstar Real Estate Conference.com, so nreconference.com. And it's just, I think it's going to be a fantastic event. A lot of speakers speaking about different aspects of real estate, mostly commercial, a lot of multifamily, a lot of raising money. We got a guy coming to speak about mobile homes. We got some self-storage. We've got some guys who do industrial and retail, office, and so on. We've got some guys that do house flipping. So we're going to cover a whole heap of a lot of topics and just fantastic information. And I really wanted to provide something that's going to be able to give back to the community. I mean, that's a big passion of mine, to be able to give back. And this I saw as an opportunity to potentially do that. So all the proceeds are going to be going to junior achievement, as you mentioned, and the suicide prevention. Now, suicide prevention was one of the partners of mine. His family was affected by suicide, and so very close to home, obviously, for him. Very worthy cause. There's one person committing suicide is too many, but there's obviously too many people doing that and affecting not only their lives but other people's lives. And so getting awareness around it and being able to help people out that are in a stage of needing that help is extremely important. And then the other one is junior achievement. And junior achievement, they help underserved youth and young adults to really learn about business, learn about finances, learn about, being an entrepreneur, and kind of get them to think a little outside the box and think about opportunities other than really what your school talks about. So I really like junior achievement. I like the program and what they provide. We just don't teach it in schools, and junior achievement does come into schools and and partners with them and teaches them and then do stuff outside of school. So really powerful program. If you don't know anything about junior achievement, you can look it up. There's chapters all over the US, and I wanted to provide some value to them as well.
Yeah, kind of hard to talk about. A lot of people don't know. I actually have an older brother that committed suicide around 10 years ago. And
Sorry to hear.
yeah, it affects me too. And I'm glad that, you're supporting, and me flying out to Minnesota and buying a ticket is actually going to go and potentially help somebody from not having to go through that themselves. So
Yep.
that's
Yeah.
an
There,
exciting aspect of it too.
there's so many great organizations and charities out there. We wanted to pick a couple that we really believed in and feel like can help people out. And those two we just felt spoke to us at the time and really wanted to try to support them.
Very good. So in regards to what is going to be happening besides the actual speakers, is there going to be a mixer? Should I get there a little early?
Yeah, yeah. So we on Thursday there's likely going to be an event, kind of a pre-conference event. We haven't completely planned that out, but likely there's going to be something there. On Friday evening after the first day of the conference, we're going to have some just kind of like a happy hour, drinks and maybe some appetizers and stuff like that. And then Saturday we're going to have a breakfast as well for everybody who attends. So. And I would assume that on Saturday evening we'll have something as well, some sort of post conference party, um, happy hour or whatever type of thing. So there will definitely be plenty of opportunity to network between, before, after, and between the conference activities. And then during the conference, we've got it set up to where there's a lot of networking opportunities. We have some nice breaks where you can do some good networking. And we really want to push that aspect of the conference because I think the learning is fantastic. Is really important, obviously, but the networking and the getting to know other people who are highly successful, um, or who are in the same spot as you are, whether, it doesn't matter where you're at, there's going to be somebody there that's going to be where kind of that same level as you. And then there's going to be others that are ahead and, behind you. So just great networking. That's probably the best part about these conferences.
Nice. Okay, so one thing I just remembered about, I saw in your bio that you sent me that you also do a little bit of coaching.
I do. Yeah.
Tell us about the people that you coach and how that's going for you, why you decided to do that.
Well, if you remember at the beginning, I used to be a teacher. So I used to be a high school teacher. And so teaching is kind of in my blood. I really enjoyed the teaching, but real estate fell into being even more passionate. So I wanted to be able to provide that value. I was getting people that would ask me if I do any coaching, if I, can help them out. And so eventually I just decided, okay, maybe I'll start doing some of this stuff. And I started doing some coaching and really, really enjoyed it. And it's taken off a little bit. And so now I've got some one-on-one coaching students. I've got a kind of a group mastermind that I'm getting started as well. If anybody wants to become a part of that, I'm I'm just trying to get the first one kind of off the ground where we'll just do a small group mastermind. It should be a fantastic way to really not only learn but again do some networking, potentially form some good partnerships and have some good accountability and stuff like that. So I really enjoy giving back that way. Of course, I'm getting paid for it, but it's very rewarding when I get done with the call and, or even in the call and people are like, wow, that just, what you just said just blew my mind. I had no clue that was possible or, whatever. And then even the better is, they get a deal under contract and they're closing on these deals. And it's just like that's fantastic. And I had a part to do with that. Just, it makes it so worth it.
Yeah, I just started talking to this one guy who I think I'm gonna hire. His name's Jens Nielsen, and he's from Denmark. I don't know if you've heard of him. He owns just a few hundred units. I think he's done around 3 or 4 syndications. He's from the school of Rod Cleve.
Yeah,
Um,
I know who he is.
yeah, so I'm really excited to work with him. And he said, why do you want coaching? Why what is your why in life and things of that nature. And I told him, travel is great, money is great, um, and having an impact on the communities, both through the apartments and through the jobs that you create by purchasing and renovating apartments is great. However, for me, I think the thing that really juices me outside of being at the closing, at a title company and that adrenaline from acquiring and owning and signing off on paperwork was for me to self-actualize, because I feel like I have this potential trapped inside of me, and I feel incredibly unfulfilled if I'm not becoming a higher and greater self. And
Yep.
he really thought that that was an interesting answer. I think one that he wasn't expecting, but I'm really looking forward to working with him. I'd love to talk to you more about your coaching as well. Maybe we'll have a chance to do that networking out there. I know you're going to be extremely busy, but maybe we can at least rub shoulders for a little bit, rub elbows.
Absolutely. That's what the conference is for. And I got it set up to be able to do plenty of that. Yeah, I mean, that's it. I like that answer a lot. And that's actually kind of my answer. I was asked by my parents of like, when is enough enough? And I said, well, enough is enough when everything in the world is perfect. For me, there is no enough is enough. It's not like I'm ignoring my family or doing anything like that. For me, this is more freedom for my family, and it's providing for them, and I'm actually able to spend a lot more time with my wife and kids likely than I would if I had a regular job. And I feel like I've got potential and I've got things to give this world, and so why not push on? Why not create the most amount of value as possible? Why not be able to give back the most amount that you can? And instead of just going about life in a way of, life owes you, or just a way of like, look, I'm going to take it as easy as possible and just get through this life. It's like, well, you only have one life. Why not maximize it, make the best use out of it, and provide and give the most amount of value back to people as possible?
Yeah, that's a great answer as well. Okay, well, we're going to keep it a little bit short today, and that way I can get this out and hopefully attract the biggest audience possible. I'll post it on a few different places and then send you the link. It'll be very quick turnaround. I'm thinking about 24 to 48 hours, and we'll have this on Facebook and all the other social media platforms, and a couple of little previews on LinkedIn and a few other places. But other than that, man, I'm really looking forward to meeting you in hand, shaking your hand, meeting you in person and shaking your hand, and seeing the city of Minneapolis. I've never been in Minnesota before, so I'm really excited. And my wife even less. She's brand new to the United States. I met her down in Mexico, and we've been to, I guess she's been to 3 states: Arizona, California, and New York. So it should be
Perfect.
interesting to see what we find out there in the mid-north. Minnesota. Are you a Vikings fan, just out of curiosity?
If they're winning, yeah.
All right. Well, we're super excited to come up there and hang out and get a lot of education and value and meet some nice people out there. So I want to
It's
thank you for coming
beautiful.
on the show.
Minnesota's a beautiful area, and we will have, guess what? We'll have leaves that'll already be turning into beautiful fall colors. So you'll get to see the fall colors by then. They should be, at least. And hopefully it'll still be plenty warm. It'll be chilly, but we'll be in like the 60s
Nice.
for highs, very low humidity. So it'll be perfect.
Yeah, I'm out of Phoenix, so it's super hot still. It's like
Yeah.
100+ degrees. I mean, even
Just
at
make
night.
sure you bring a sweatshirt.
We'll come prepared. All right. Thank you so much for coming on the show, and I'll touch base with you in just let's see, about 10 or 11 days. We'll be shaking hands, hopefully.
Perfect. Sounds
All right.
great.
Take
Thanks.
care, man. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yep. Bye.